A lot of people are thinking about switching from a gas car to an electric vehicle so that they can save on operations and maintenance costs. And frankly, that's a great idea. EVs are generally much cheaper to fill up than gas cars, and you can save a ton. It's no surprise that we at Recurrent get asked a lot of questions about what sort of charging costs a future EV driver can anticipate. And while charging costs will differ based on your local electricity rates and your mileage, in general, gas car drivers spend 2 to 4 times more to refuel than EV drivers. Stats show that 70 to 80% of EV charging takes place at home or at the workplace using AC charging. And that's level 1 or level 2, and that's a resource if you want to learn more about charging types. But what this means is 2 things. 1, residential electricity rates are usually in play here. The second thing is that recharging is as easy as plugging in your car. It's just like plugging in your phone at the end of the day and you wake up and your battery's full. So if you're one of the lucky EV drivers who will be charging at home, how can you estimate your charging costs? Welcome to Simple Math, a new series by Recurrent. We are here to help you understand the world of EVs. And there may be numbers, but we're going to make it simple. If you're looking to figure out how much you're going to be spending to charge your EV at home, you're going to need 3 pieces of information. First one is how much you drive in miles, and an estimate is totally fine. So we're going to use the average monthly mileage for an American, which is 1,132 miles. Next, you're going to need to know how efficient your EV is. And this number is going to be in miles per kilowatt hour. And it's okay to use an estimate here too. The EPA can give you that number. Like miles per gallon, miles per kilowatt hour is a measure of how much energy you need to go 1 mile. And the higher it is, the more efficient your car is and the cheaper it will be to drive. Just remember, if you're using the EPA estimate for your car, if you usually drive fast or on the highway or uphill, your monthly fuel costs will be a little higher than this calculation. And if you mostly drive in the city and stop and go traffic, then your electricity costs are going to be lower than our calculation. The third part can actually vary a lot, even home to home in the same city. And that part is how much you pay for electricity. The thing you're looking for on your electricity bill is going to be under supply costs. And the part you're looking for is your kilowatt per hour cost. All right, so now that we have this information together, let's do the math for home charging. If you're like most EV owners in the country, home charging is going to be 70 to 80% of your fuel costs, and it will pretty much be predictable month to month. So for this video, we're going to use national averages. And as I mentioned, the national average monthly mileage is 1,123 miles. We're also going to assume an average EV efficiency, which is around 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. To understand the total number of kilowatt hours that you're going to need to pay for each month, we're going to divide the number of miles that we need every month by our efficiency. So that's 1,123 miles divided by 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. If we round up, we're going to get 321 kilowatt hours. In 1 month, we need to charge 321 kilowatt hours to drive our 1,123 miles. How much is this going to cost us? Let's take an average electricity cost, which is 16 cents per kilowatt hours. And the math here is really easy. We just multiply that price, 16 cents, by the number of kilowatt hours we need, which is 321. And we get our monthly cost, $51.36. So that's just over $50 to drive 1,123 miles. Just for funsies, how much would you spend on gas in the same month? Well, let's use the same average mileage, 1,123, and the average fuel efficiency for a gas car, which is like 23 miles per gallon. We're going to divide the monthly mileage by the fuel efficiency to get the number of gallons we need. So that's 1,123 miles divided by 23 mpg. And then We're going to multiply that by an average gas price of $3.60 a gallon. So our total is $175.77 per month. That's more than 3 times the cost to fuel an EV. Of course, gas cars are also way less efficient than EVs. You can convert your efficiency in miles per kilowatt hour to efficiency in MPGe, and you see that your EV is a lot more efficient. You can get more info on this by checking out this link. So, you may be saying to me, Liz, this is great info, but what if you're one of those people who can't charge at home? Or maybe you're going on a road trip and you really need it to be budget friendly? How can you estimate your charge on the go? If you're on the road, you're going to be relying on public charging, and this will either be level 2 AC charging or DC fast charging. This is slightly different math, but as more people and apartments and rentals start to make the switch to electric cars, it's going to become increasingly important. We're going to do the math using charging costs for DC fast chargers, which are the fastest kind of charging that you can do. To figure out your charging costs on the go, you're going to need to know how much electricity you need in kilowatt hours, and this is going to depend really on the size of your battery and how much of it you're using. In general, we always recommend to keep your battery between 20% and 80% state of charge for best battery life. The only exception is if you're going on a road trip and you really need all of your range possible to get to the next charger. You're also going to need to know the kilowatt hour rate at the charging station, and this will vary based on the charging station you're using and the speed it offers. It's pretty much the same thing as figuring out the cost of a gallon of gas. You can use an app like PlugShare to look up charging costs in your area and get a sense of what they're going to look like. It's also important to know that faster charging stations are likely going to charge you more per kilowatt hour. If you have a new EV, it's likely that you have some sort of free fast charging benefits at certain stations. You should try to find those. Finally, you need to know if there are any session fees or idling fees at your charging station. A session fee is usually a flat fee to initiate the charge. It's usually pretty cheap, a couple of dollars. And idle fees are permanent fees that some stations charge if you leave your car plugged in when you're done charging. Please don't be a plug hog and be nice to the other EV drivers on the road. They need electrons too. Once we know all these things, we can do the math. Let's take a car with a 100 kilowatt hour battery, just to make the numbers easy. We're going to assume we're going from 20% to 80% state of charge, which means we're adding 60 percentage points or 60 kilowatt hours of charge to our battery. And for most cars, that's a lot. A ballpark national average for a DC fast charger is around 35 cents per kilowatt hour. Let's use that number and assume a sample session fee of $3.50. Using these numbers, you would expect to pay $24.50 for a typical road trip stop. Now, let's say you were really throwing caution to the wind and you were charging from 0% to 100% at this same station. That would cost you $38.50, but it would also take way longer. So here's a hint. Don't charge past 80% at a DC fast charging station. It's a total waste of time and money. You're much better moving off to a level 2 charger to top off. Fortunately, even if you rely on public stations, you might not need to charge your EV as often as you think. The average EV driver uses less than 20% of their vehicle's range, so you'll definitely have wiggle room to plan charging sessions ahead of when you need them. The takeaway is this: charging at home is always going to be cheaper than refilling with gas in all 50 states. Now, if you need to rely heavily on public charging, it's going to be a bit more expensive to refill your EV. Either way, you now have the tools to budget for your electricity costs using the simple math in this video.